From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Beat the Champ. It's week 3 here at Mallwitz's Island Lanes on Grand Island. We have survived the first 2 weeks. Always a victory in itself, but we've also seen some really good bowling, and we saw it from the Grand Island guys with Andy Moran and Mike Johnson, but now Mike was eliminated, and now you don't have to be a Grand Island guy to be successful, because Jayson Schubbe is going to be the guy to try to do that.
Yeah, that's right. So for 2 weeks, we got to see the Grand Island guys in a different way, you know, more professional and doing their jobs, and they'll come back and have fun. But this week, we've got 2 very experienced players, very successful players right now, versus 2 new guys who are very new to the show, and they're going to try to break them down.
Yeah, Joe Doherty and Steve Conklin are the newer guys, and then right in the middle of today is going to be Rob Piccoli, who's on for the 7th time in the last 8 months. So we'll see how this all shakes out. It's an interesting variety of bowlers, and it's all about us getting through this week to pace ourselves for next week's Island Lanes All-Star Showdown.
Yeah, and that's always an event in and of itself,
Yeah.
but we don't want that to overshadow our regular competition here. So we do have a lot of, experienced bowlers with Rocket Rob, but, then there's some guys that aren't so experienced. So that'll be really interesting to see that as well.
It will be, and Jayson Schubbe has been one of the best bowlers on this show the last 6 months, so we'll see if he can keep that going. Week 3 at Island Lanes on Grand Island. Let's get rolling. There it is, Jayson Schubbe and Steve Conklin making his Beat the Champ debut. Gets us started here at Mallwitz's Island Lanes on Grand Island. Steve's from not too far away up in Niagara Falls, and he's been bowling for a long time. He's got a great average, but this is the first time we've had a chance to see him on our show, and we've learned over the years that guys making their debuts takes them a little bit to shake through the nerves and everybody's eyes on them. And as I say that, didn't seem to bother Steve. It's a strike in the first frame.
Yeah, those youngins, they don't even know what it's like to be nervous. 25 years
TV
old.
cameras have spent their whole lives around TV cameras, so.
That's true.
So we'll see how Steve continues to move forward, and maybe the bigger challenge for Steve is going to be Jayson Schubbe, who is making his 12th appearance on our show with 10 wins and 7 losses, and he has been lately one of our most consistent Beat the Champ bowlers.
Again, I gave him all kinds of kudos there for making that adjustment that he made in the last match in order to win it. And it's not easy changing your whole approach midstream and just taking a wild guess and pulling out a match like that. And he said he was still going to be fishing around in this match, so I guess he's still fishing around.
So we talked a little bit about the equipment as it related to Jayson, as he came out and started to use the urethane ball in our last match last week against Mike Johnson, and then kind of bailed on it about halfway through.
Yeah, because it hooked early for him, and urethane will do that. You can tell a urethane ball by its real porous surface. Yeah, that he didn't want that to happen for sure.
And that's the second match in a row that we've had an open in the first frame.
Right.
And last time it was Mike Johnson, not Jayson. Jayson took advantage of that, and Mike ultimately said that just kind of set a bad tone for him. So missing on the 2-pin spare means it's not the open, the start that it's the open, but not the start that Jayson Schubbe wanted.
Well, so far this month, it's taken 230 or better to win the matches, and when you start off with an open, it's hard to get to that 230 range. I mean, we don't know that every match will be 230, but so far that's been the norm, between 230 and 250.
Yeah, Jayson won with a 214 last week, but other than that, our winning scores have been 266, 238, 258, 234, 248. So that 214 significantly by 25 pins at least, but the lowest of the winning scores.
Mike had started with an open. I think he started off very slow start out of the gate, which that's probably what gave Jayson the ability to fish around and change equipment and be able to still pull the match out. But we know filling those frames, even on high-scoring shots, especially on high-scoring shots, is really important.
So another spare challenge here for Jayson Schubbe. Wants to make sure he gets this one. And how about that? I was just about to say the last thing you want to do is start with 2 opens, and that's exactly what Jayson did. That's very surprising.
This will take the nerves out of you real quick if you have any, because
and this will be the boost that Steve might have not expected to get.
Yep. He can just freewheel it at this point.
And he is responding right now with a pair of strikes, a double to get things started. 29 years old from Niagara Falls. Associate for Hobby Lobby is the profession for Steve Conklin. And how about age 25? He's been bowling since he was 2 years old.
I saw
23 years of bowling at age 25.
So we haven't seen anybody play this deep on the lane yet. And everybody's been right in that track area in that 10, looking at 10, either trying to pull it into the oil or use a little bit of the dry. So he's got more hands, so he's got a higher rev rate. He can get in here, he can get in the oil and play it. So he's really in uncharted territory, but he has enough hand to get through that. So he could be very tough on this.
So it's strike, strike, spare on the first 3 frames for Steve Conklin.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
Oh,
that was a classic ring 10, wasn't it?
That was a sweet, perfect shot.
You know, sometimes when things aren't really going your way, it also means you don't get any luck either.
Yeah, no kidding. He got that cut down to 22. He got that lead cut down to 22.
Yeah, despite starting with 3 open frames, he had it down to 22, and that would have really made this much more interesting down the stretch. You knew Jayson wasn't going away even after the start. Beat the Champ's orange man will fight you to the end.
That is why you do not quit.
Even when you might want to, right? Even when logic might tell you that you should, there's always the chance, as long as you got some of those frames that haven't been filled in yet on the Castellone scoreboard. And, oh my goodness, look at that thing. That was as much a wobble as I've seen in a long time.
You know, that strike goes for Jayson, that ball goes for Jayson. You've got a 12-pin match here. I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but those are rough 10 pins for both guys.
So Steve will have to try to finish off this spare. And he missed it. And there you go. 8th frame, Steve Conklin looked to be solidly in control here, and he may still be, but it's going to be a little more nerve-wracking for the final 2 frames than we thought it might have been.
Well, it went from a 40-pin match to a 10-pin match. So.
And the difference might very well be that almost 45-degree wobble.
Oh, we're in that foundation 9th frame.
Well, it's been quite the interesting start here on week number 3. We've seen a little bit of everything in this match so far.
We sure have.
Rob Piccoli awaits the winner. Oh, that is clutch. Just when you might have been staring at a pair of back-to-back open frames, that is an incredibly clutch and big spare pickup for Steve Conklin. To the 9th frame.
This is such an exciting finish. So what we've got here is Jayson has the 9th and 10th ahead of him. This is a big shot right here. Foundation frame, again, we talk about it a lot, the 9th frame. This can pole vault him into a win, but he needs to strike here.
And that, again, sliding right by the 10 pin.
Well, that 10 pin's been tough on that lane for both of them.
Yep. Been the story of this match, hasn't it? So once again, to think that Jayson began open, first 3, and still had himself in position to win this match is pretty amazing.
Yep, absolutely agree. Great spare.
So it's a 9th frame spare for Jayson Schubbe. Here are your updated numbers on the Castellone scoreboard.
All right, you know he needs every one of these. Just making his plan.
I'll make it a good one. 10th frame. That's what he needed.
Great shot.
Keeping himself alive.
All right, so now he's forced Steve to spare.
So talk about being a little bit all over the place for both guys in this match, but that incredibly clutch spare pickup for Steve Conklin may ultimately be the difference here. Jayson just can't seem to get a break with any of the pins flying.
And keep in mind, that ball is not a high percentage carry ball. He is trying to do this with a urethane ball, so he's really giving up technology for the pocket. So it was his only chance because it got him to the pocket every shot. Okay, so. So what striking did was, like I said, make Steve have to get a spare. So any spare will do, but he needs a spare.
So you can see the 195 is on the board. And that's a strike to clinch the victory. So all over the place. Great start by Steve. A little bit of a skirmish there in the back half while Jayson struggled and then got hot. But it's going to be a win in the debut for Steve Conklin over Jayson Schubbe. And it's Steve that will move on. We'll get Jayson's thoughts on rather interesting match when Sue and I return. We're off and rolling from Mallwitz's Island Lanes on Grand Island. Beat the Champ is back in a moment. Steve Conklin gets the 216 to 195 win over Jayson Schubbe. That was interesting, to say the least, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've made a number of matches recently very interesting. I started out terrible, couldn't make a spare again. So for like the second month in a row, I can't make a spare. I kind of got pushed into the oil a little bit with urethane, which I was trying to avoid, and I knew what's going to happen. You're going to leave 10 pins, and I left a couple of flat ones at the end.
How do you fight after starting the way you started with opens in the first 3 frames? How do you fight back?
You don't really have a choice, do you? I mean, you got to put those frames behind you, and there's nothing you can do to change them. So the only thing you can affect is what you do going forward. So I went out and tried to throw one good shot at a time. Sounds really, what's the word there?
Cliche?
Cliche, yeah. Yes, and it absolutely is.
But it's true.
It absolutely is true. So
yeah, it's true. Right, Mike? It's true.
It's always true. It's kind of funny. The cliches always happen in bowling. But I have a question for you. So you made the cut. You made the show now. You made the show in October. You made the show before here, correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we have
He's
league
working here
openings.
for some kind of membership
We have league openings this September. Clearly, you like this joint, so we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
I knew where that was going. I knew there was a membership fee pitch coming there from Mike Mallwitz. So good performances as always. Always good to see Jayson Schubbe. We always seem to be seeing him lately. Wouldn't be surprised if we see him again. But we know we're going to get Steve Conklin and Rob Piccoli. It's our next match coming your way on Beat the Champ. All right, here we go. Match number 2. Can Steve Conklin stay undefeated here on Beat the Champ? And Rob Piccoli, who has been on this show so much he should qualify as our guest host, our third member of the broadcast team here. He's going to be quite the challenge. Steve Conklin appears ready to accept those challenges.
Very nice shot.
So Rob Piccoli, 34 years old from Kenmore, produce manager at Tops Friendly Markets, literally across the street from where we are here at Island Lanes in Grand Island, is making his 20th appearance on Beat the Champ. Overall record of 16 wins and 15 losses.
So,
He's been on our show 7 times in the last 8 months.
Yeah.
An incredible run of consistency, only matched by the Zarcones and the Jagozinskis.
I think he's been here more than you.
Oh, you were waiting on that one, weren't you? You had that one teed up for me, because you're absolutely right.
You walked right into it.
Yes, I did. I really walked into that one.
You know why? Because I've been counting them down, but you weren't here counting them with me.
Wow. All right,
So anyway.
Here, you can take over the.
No interviews. I did enough interviews while you were gone. So.
All right, Sue has clearly put me in my place. Show up more often, Peck.
So Rob's choosing to play out in the dry. So he's definitely right, unless he missed his target on the right lane, because he was definitely a little bit more in on this lane. We're talking about these guys playing these lanes very differently.
Rob was on the show last month, as you might expect, where he lost to Jayson Schubbe. Matter of fact, Rob's last 2 losses on our show were both to Jayson Schubbe, so I bet he was a little disappointed that he's not bowling against Jayson Schubbe, because it was looking like it had that potential. And when Steve keeps doing that, Rob will be going, I wish I was bowling against Schubbe.
Yeah, that was a little late. It rolled up a little late, came up a little late. I wonder if that lane is a little bit tighter for these guys inside.
Strikes to get us started in the first 2 frames for Steve Conklin from Niagara Falls. As you get the look early in this match at Janelle Sabin and the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. There's that tricky 10 pin has been plaguing a lot of guys here so far today.
Yeah.
Really for the last couple of weeks.
When they're in that deep, and I mean they could go deeper, but when they're inside the oil like that, that seems to be the same thing. Jayson was in the same spot, and that 10 pin is just the angle that they're coming into the pocket, that the 10 pin's risky.
Strike, spare for Steve Conklin to get us started.
It's so dry to the right now that I think that you almost have to take your chances and just make your 10 pins, because the outside's way too suspect to throw a ball in.
Rob Piccoli has had some success here. He actually had a 4-match winning streak at Island Lanes. I believe was that in October, or was that a year ago? I don't remember either one, but he has won 4 in a row here before.
Nice shot.
Rob Piccoli's 20th appearance on our show now is 3rd on our all-time list of behind Mike Zarcone's 37 appearances and Chuck Jagozinski's 33 appearances. And Rob, with 1 win in this match, will move himself into a tie for 4th with Pat Brick for most wins over the reincarnation of Beat the Champ now
Wow.
into its 6th year.
That's no easy task to keep making
Fifth
the
year.
top
We're actually
9.
in our
yeah.
5th year now.
Yep.
And there might not be anybody in Western New York who bowls as much as Rob does. He is completely dedicated to the sport. I'll tell you about his rather hectic weekly schedule when we get him back up again. But so right now, after opening up with a spare, Rob's gone 3 in a row. Steve went first 2 strikes, 3rd frame spare. Here we are on 4.
Oh, and we're off.
Same thing.
Back to striking.
So he fits in a full-time job around all those bowling nights.
He does. But like I said, his full-time job, he can literally walk here from his job, so that might be helping his bowling, even though he
doesn't bowl
does
here.
not bowl here. Rob does. I'll have to take that up with Mallwitz.
Can't lure this guy in from across the
I
street.
was going to say.
Nice. So
Maybe if Mallwitz needs to go over and buy more of his produce over there from Rob and the tops.
that light swisher hit seems to have a better carry percentage than when you hit the pocket. That 10 pin is risky.
In the year, just to continue to give you another example of how successful and Rob has been lately, in the year of 2019, no one was on more Beat the Champ shows than Rob. 13 show appearances in 2019. That's 2 more than Jagosinski and 1 more than Zarcone. And Rob's 14 wins in the calendar year of 2019 was 1 off the lead of Chuck Jagosinski. So even though Mike and Chuck have been perennially our most regular bowlers, in the last year, almost no one has been better and more consistent than Rob Piccoli.
This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
Steve's new to us on this show, but we rattled off some of his achievements and accomplishments. He is an outstanding Western New York bowler, and we're just getting our first look at him, so none of this should be a surprise. 4 in a row.
It's got a nice little cheering section here.
Yes, he does. And there's your updated Castellone scoreboard that shows you 4 in a row for both guys. Strikes 4 in a row for Steve. Rob's got 4 in a row.
Rob, unfortunately, got a spare at the end of his last one, so oh. So that one never got out in front of him. That just went too far down the lane.
No, you're right. We had a spare in the 6th. I didn't write that one down, so. You distracted me. You called me out and you got me completely off my game here today.
Oh, we'll catch you up. Rob's
Yeah.
down 13.
Okay, thank you. That's what we needed.
He has to make sure he keeps that concentration up. This is no time. He can't give up any more pins because Steve is locked in.
Yes, he is. Any observations on the equipment that's helping these guys bowl as well as they are?
No, they're really approaching the lanes different because their games are so different. So I think they're both made good ball choices. I think that Rocket Rob he's in a trickier part of the lane. He's in a part of the lane where that's been used all day. So Steve's in a part of the lane that's fresh, where all the oil is still there. Nobody's moved it around. So I think we're seeing the difference in consistency just where the ball's going.
3 consecutive spares for Rob Piccoli in 6, 7, and 8. Now Steve Conklin working on 4 strikes in a row.
Steve's looking pretty tough. I mean, I've seen him miss in a little bit, and the ball just sits up real nicely, hits light, swishes it. When he gets it to the right, he does get it into that dry, and it helps the ball come back and hit. He's got a real nice look right now. He got way right on that one, and it came back and hit the pocket perfect. So he has the absolute right ball in his hand for this.
There's an impressive sort of calmness that we're seeing from Steve as well, too. which again, history tells us we don't always see from first-time bowlers on our show.
Yeah, he does have an air of confidence.
Calmness usually leads to confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Big spare.
So the strike run comes to an end for Steve, but a good spare in the 8th frame.
All right, so his lead of 13 stays the same. So we still got 2 frames left in the all-important 9th frame here. What both these guys do is pretty critical here in the 9th.
We've seen the 9th frame play a big role in determining some of our matches over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Oh, how about that? I think that pin literally rolled from all the way on the left to all the way on the right.
I couldn't see it. I was blocked by his body. But when I saw it go that far to the right and make that big break in the back, it looks is what a ring 10 looks like. So I saw the 10 pin there, figured that was what his leave was. I didn't know there was a messenger coming across the deck.
Oh yeah, that messenger delivered all right.
Must strike here for Rob. All right.
He always seems to respond, particularly when you say something like that.
Still looking at 13 pins difference, though.
So Rob's going to have to keep throwing some more strikes here to try to put that pressure back on Steve. Winner of this takes on Joe Doherty to wrap up week number 3 here at Mallwitz's Island Lanes, and then the winner of that match coming up will be the one who advances to Salamanca's Central Lanes in 2 weeks. Well, that's not going to help Rob. He needed as many pins as he could.
No, that's going to give him a potential 225, and you're looking at Steve having 218 in the 9th already, so that's going to just about do it for him, even though it's still mathematically on the table. Steve needs to just keep it on the lane.
Right. So Rob will finish things out here in the 10th frame, post up that final score, and then we'll see if Steve can finish things off. Don't forget, coming up on next week's show, our always fun and entertaining Island Lanes All-Star Challenge, where we have as much trouble keeping up with how many bowlers are out there as we do how many pins get knocked down.
I say good luck keeping that straight.
But we always have a lot of fun. It's the best of the best here at Island Lanes, and it always means a lot of yelling and screaming and trash talking and Mallwitz antics, you name it, we get a little bit of all of it, so that'll be next week's show.
Well, when we let into the show, we had 2 guys with experience and at the top of their game, and 2 guys that were new guys coming in with no experience. And the 2 guys with no experience are going into the final match of the day.
That's right.
So you just never know. That's why you play the game.
Yep. 224 goes on the board for Rob Piccoli, and Steve Conklin facing a little bit of a challenge here in this one. Good spare pickup, and that will do it. That will clinch the victory for Steve Conklin. So out of nowhere, essentially, a newcomer to our show, he's rattled off 2 wins in a row with a chance to sweep the week. We'll check in with Rob Piccoli and get you ready for our 3rd match when Sue and I, along with Janelle Saban, return to Grand Island. More of Beat the Champ right after this. Big scores, 238 to 224 as Steve Conklin defeats Rob Piccoli. We're used to seeing you on this show all the time. We're not used to seeing you be one and done. What happened today?
Well, I think the lanes are starting to transition pretty rapidly. So, I mean, I thought I threw the ball pretty well. Just a little sequence in the middle with the 7 count kind of got away from me.
Right. But, we talked a little bit about the incredible run that you've been on of 7 shows in 8 months. Beyond just today and beyond this month, how have you been able to be so consistent?
You know, I just try to have fun now. I mean, it's just kind of easy going, just do my thing, and just
easy going and do his thing, right, Mike?
How is he consistent? He's Rocket Rob. I mean, he does what he does, and he's so good at it. Just the same thing every time. You're so consistent. I mean, just great job on making this kind of run. It's kind of incredible. I'm surprised you lost because I had big expectations from you.
I know, you were betting on me.
Yeah, I was. I would always bet on Rocket Rob.
Good thinking. Hey, give him a little money, make him feel a little bit better.
Yep,
if history proves itself, there's a pretty good chance we're hanging out with Rob again next month in Salamanca. We will find out, but we do know it's going to be Doherty and Conklin in our final match of the day. That is next. It's Doherty and Conklin to wrap things up here. Third week, final show, third match at Mallwitz's Island Lanes, and it's been a bit of a surprise, I guess. You know, if you tuned in and you looked at the names that were bowling, and we all know how Jayson Schubbe's been successful on our show, and certainly Rob Piccoli, but neither of them are here. It is Steve Conklin, a first-time Beat the Champer, in this match against Joe Doherty, making his second appearance on our show.
Great shot.
And
I thought that was a great shot.
Yeah, Steve Conklin has been bowling great, 216, 238 in his 2 wins, but a little work to do right off the bat here in frame number 1 for the Niagara Falls native.
So that just tells you what kind of wall of oil got built up, because that ball didn't think about him getting to the pocket. Right.
If you ever got a bunch of bowlers together and they formed a band, wall of oil. I like that.
All right,
even though there's
you heard it
literally
here.
500 bowling terms that you could use to name a band full of bowlers, wall of oil is the current
Wall
choice.
of oil.
Yeah. Here's Joe Doherty. It's his second appearance here on Beat the Champ. He's 27 years old from Tonawanda, full-time machinist. Ringing around that 10. Only time we've seen Joe on our show was in 2018 at Alley Brant Lanes, when he appeared and was one of the victims of a long streak by Jayson Siliberto, who won 7 in a row that particular month at Alley Brant Lanes. 7 of the 9 matches that month. One of his victims was Joe Doherty.
There's some power. He's got some power. It's even astounding to watch that 7-pin stand up. He hits the pin so hard.
Mm-hmm. So we're often going in a couple of guys that have not necessarily been regulars on our show, but are bowling, particularly in Steve's case, bowling great right now. And again, the winner of this match advances in 2 weeks to Central Lanes in Salamanca. And there's the second frame strike for Joe Doherty.
He's got a big pop at the bottom of his swing. Right before he releases it, you can see his hand just pop behind the ball. It creates all of that action.
So what have we learned about Steve Conklin in his first 2 matches here, having not seen him on our show before?
Good solid bowler, good rev rate.
Oh, that was a bad miss of the pocket there, wasn't it?
I don't think he's as aggressive through it as he was in the beginning. I mean, that looked a little lopey, never got to the break point, never hit the dry. It's not going to roll up in all that oil. So now it's his turn to have a little bit rough start.
Yeah, that's 2 open frames to begin our match for Steve Conklin. So as good as he looked in those first 2 in really dominating both of them, not unusual, just like Jayson Schubbe went through this, kind of hit the skids here early on.
Well, he's in a part of the lane, he's in a heavy oil part of the lane. Is that oil actually building up to his left and creating that wall of oil that we're talking about? Because all of a sudden, he's coming late when he's been right in the pocket the entire time. So he's no stranger to transition either. He might just be working through something on the lane.
So he rescues himself with a spare in the third frame. But door is open now, or the Doherty is open. Sorry, had to do it. For Joe to take a little control out of this one. 220 plus average for Joe Doherty. Bowls here at Island Lanes in the Friday Night League where he has that 220 average. Wow, talk about some exploding pins.
He's got nothing on his wrist, nothing on his hand. That is just
grip it and
pure
rip it.
Power.
Right? Grip it and rip it. And you mentioned
the Island Lanes way.
Yeah, you mentioned to me that he's kind of new to the leagues. This is his first year in the league here at Island Lanes.
That's what my interview told me.
See?
With Mike Johnson.
Research.
I went.
Oh, Mike Johnson is your source? You can't reveal your sources unless it's Mike Johnson? Boy, that wasn't just a ring around the 10. That was like a jet flyover.
I know. I know. All you see is the bottom of the pin up.
Yes. Like they have to get that one out of the ceiling. That one's embedded halfway up in the roof. So now, do we know if Joe is taking part in the Mallwitz's Island Lanes All-Star Challenge next week?
I have not gotten the list.
It's a closely guarded secret. It's a closely guarded secret because it usually contains every current resident of Grand Island.
Well, I see if you know, all you can do is kind of watch the people come through the door and kind of figure what they're here for.
We got the usual crowd here?
Well,
our usual crowd of Island Lanesers? We
have a new face, and that is that of Tom Brady, and we haven't seen him before in the fourth show.
There's Steve Conklin's first strike of this match in frame number 4.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
So kind of a similar situation. Again, we'll go back to what we said in the first show. Do not quit. Keep trying to figure it out. Keep working. There's a bunch of strikes in a row can change the whole nature of the match.
Yep, we saw that happen to Jayson Schubbe, where he responded with 3 opens by going 4 strikes in a row.
Oh, beautiful shot.
So that's the fun part about it. We get new names and we get to expose the bowling fans of Western New York to guys that maybe you hadn't heard of. Everybody, I think, has started to learn all about the Jagosinskis, Zarcones, Zimmermans, Bricks, Piccolis, Wojtoviches, but the nice thing about this show is all of a sudden now you're figuring out who Steve Conklin is and how good he is, and we'll find out how good he is when he stares that spare down.
Tough break right there.
Yep. Let's see what Steve can do with this. Not easy. Boy, he gave it a good run.
Come on, get this one.
Sent that.
Yeah, you don't see
six-pin
that one
fly.
made that often when they're in the back row like that. Those are tough.
So that's now 3 opens in the match. That doesn't bode well. We don't see a lot of winners on this show if you go open 3 times. Well, lots of traffic around that 10, but nothing that took it out.
Pushed it halfway into the gutter and still didn't knock it over.
Well, we've seen 10 pins that moved 2-3 inches. We've seen 10 pins that were nearly half tipped over and didn't fall. All part of the Mallwitz magic here at Island Lanes. Did that count or not? I didn't think so. That hit the sidewall
you know
first?
That it did count because the pin was actually half, the body of it was in the gutter, so it actually hit the pin.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't hit the gutter first, it hit the pin first, but it was hard to tell because if that pin hadn't been moved over, it probably wouldn't have hit the pin first. But the body of it was hanging into the gutter, so that ended up, all he had to do was hit the pin first.
Interesting, because on first glance, I thought that would not have counted.
Because it didn't bounce out of the gutter and onto the pin, it actually nicked the side of the pin. So that was a close call. At first I thought the same thing you did.
See, we learn new rules and interpretations and nuances of this sport every time we come here, or anywhere for that matter. So right now, it looks like Joe is in control, and he's bowling like he's in control. 2 strikes in a row.
Wow.
Make it 3.
That was a beauty. That shot said, I'm in the driver's seat, because he stayed down, he threw it perfect, there was no nerves.
You can tell a lot from body language, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Body language as it leads to proper form. Another nasty ring 10 for Steve Conklin. So Steve's looking to the sky a little bit, maybe asking for a little bit of help here, but the Castellone scoreboard tells us he's got the uphill challenge.
Wow.
Not only the way that he's bowled, but mostly the way Joe Doherty's bowled.
There's really no way other than Joe hurting himself and not being able to get back up on the lane. Again, we look at this like we've seen so many things happen until it's right there on paper. But all right, that's going to do it.
Yeah, then just another incredibly difficult spare, and Steve Conklin's look on his face pretty much tells you what you needed to know there. So.
Yeah, it is now on paper.
All right, so it's official. It's a win for Joe Doherty over Steve Conklin. A nice little run here in his Beat the Champ debut, but in his second appearance on our show, it's Joe Doherty. Hey, how about that? We're writing off Steve, and he went and pulled off one heck of a spare, didn't he?
Yep.
It won't make a difference, though, will it?
No.
No, it won't. So Joe Doherty, in his second appearance on our show, is going to be our winner and our champion, and he's going to be the one headed to Salamanca in 2 weeks. We'll check in with both guys and get you ready for our fun show next week when Sue and I return to Grand Island. More of Beat the Champ at Island Lanes is next. Impressive win for Joe Doherty, 234 to 169 over Steve Conklin, but an impressive debut for you, Steve. Debuts haven't always gone well through the course of Beat the Champ. How were you able to overcome a lot of the nerves and things like that other first-timers struggle with?
I just got to bowl my game, make my good shots, and hope the pins fall my way.
Were you feeling good about those first 2 matches?
Oh, yeah, definitely. After the first game, nerves settled down a little bit and making good shots. And as long as I make good shots, hopefully the pins execute for me. And
yeah,
last game I got
rough start
trouble,
hurt you, didn't it?
Yeah, those 2 splits definitely costed me, and try to make a couple ball changes, but he bowled good. Joe bowled excellent, and give him a lot of credit, and hopefully I'll be back.
All right, another Niagara Falls guy. You got to get into the Mallwitz family here.
I mean,
I'm down.
I'm down. He's down. Clearly he likes it, so yeah, let's go. It was great to meet you, man. Great bowling. You throw a great ball. Yeah, man. And here's some money. I'm sure put it to good use.
My kids are at home waiting for it.
Yeah.
2 kids at home waiting for it.
There you go, and they'll get a hold of it too. Someone who's already in the Mallwitz family, our winner, Joe Doherty.
That's right. We're talking about it right here. And you're new to Bowling League here on Friday nights?
I am. I used to bowl Travel A when that was still a thing, and we would come here, and I loved it. But decided to come here this year, and here we are. I'm loving it.
Did any of that experience play into how you chose to play these lanes today, or were they completely different?
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. You get 8 guys on a pair, 3 games, they break down, kind of just through where I normally throw at the end of the night to start, and it worked out.
Yeah. So were you thinking at all about that long trip to Salamanca you have in a couple weeks?
Is there another question we can ask? Or no, I thought about it. I mean, obviously I'm going to go. I gotta carry on the Grand Island way, even though I'm from Tonawanda, but.
Perfectly said. What do you think of that? That was great.
That was great. You know what? That's what we are on Grand Island. If you bowl here, your family immediately. Overnight, family.
I can attest to it.
Yeah.
I can attest to it.
Yeah.
Well, come here on Friday nights. It's a fun time.
All right. Hey, make all your entertainment plans when we're not on the air here. We know we're going to get more Joe Doherty because he's going to be part of next week's show. We'll get you ready for that one, and trust me, you need to get ready for the Mallwitz's All-Star Challenge. We'll do that when Sue and I return on Beat the Champ. All right, guys. Hey, Steve, pleasure. Well, we're used to the familiar names winning. That's why they're familiar names. So how did 2 unfamiliar names in Conklin and Doherty wind up entertaining us this week?
I know, it wouldn't have been my prediction, but that's why we play the games, to see what happens. And it turns out I didn't really realize that we ended up getting kind of an insider from the Grand Island team. So what goes around comes around. We finished where we started, with a Grand Island bowler.
Yes, we did. So we had a lot of good Grand Island bowlers bowling well here on Grand Island. Next week, it's all Grand Island bowlers. It's the most fun you can have by crossing over a bridge. It's Mallwitz's All-Star Challenge. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh. Are you ready? I mean,
I don't know that we're ever ready.
There's so many people. There's so much fun. It's all exciting.
Yep.
Nobody can keep track.
Hundreds of bowlers will be a part of next week's show on the always fun Mallwitz's All-Star Challenge. Make sure you're a part of our show. Next week, we'll see Joe Doherty both next week and 2 weeks from now in Salamanca. We hope to see you in both places as well. For Janelle and Sue, my name is Paul. Thanks for watching Beat the Champ.